This car, I'm literally going to build it with a removable track package. They're virtually identical. Then if you look at this drawing, this one is much taller than this one. And then for my vertical height to find a point, I can just raise and lower this. Not because I want my Countach back and I want that better, I don't. But it's kind of funny because it's sort of like rubbing it in my Countach's face. Like the Countach was a bad ex-girlfriend. You know what I'm talking about? What's up, people? Yes, I'm standing on steel. It's kind of greasy so it doesn't flash rust, and you could kind of almost moonwalk on it earlier. Anyway, we are here to get back to building the King Zero V12 Supercar, which is right here. Now this is honestly the most fun, creative, and satisfying part of the process I've ever done building a car. And I'm gonna say I'm having a really great time. The last video I was completely zany and funny and just having a good time and being a little out there because I enjoyed it and it's my car, and I don't really, it's kind of like being fine art. You do fine art because you like it, and you do commercial art because somebody's paying you. So I don't really care if other people don't like it. So I can have lots of fun. But I really want to bring you guys along for this part of the process. And I hope you can start to see this wire form framework, basically this wire buck as it is. So you can see what's going on in the rear. You can now see a line taking shape here, a wheel well, and the nose. And we're going to do a bit of this today, but I just wanted to show you the thinking behind it. So of course over here I've got some of my big drawings, full scale of the car, which I just ripped, great. Over here. And the purpose of that, of course, is so that I can quickly have a visual representation in full size. Now the thing that I realized rather quickly when I started this, I got really excited, of course, having this there, and you all saw me acting like a goofball in the last video, where I showed you this, this point finder I'm breaking my car. This point finder I made where I welded a washer down here as kind of like a little sight so I can find a point in space on the plane of the floor. And then for my vertical height to find a point, I can just raise and lower this, and when I tighten it down, it goes directly in line to this little finger. So for instance, when I want to find a point, what I initially do is I go over here to this rough drawing, but it's full scale, of effectively what the original car was. And the drawing's not perfect, which is really frustrating and would drive an engineer bonkers that needs every single point. So what happens is from here to there, I've got to measure things. So I'll give you an example. The very first thing I did is I wanted to create the opening or the leading edge of the car where the strip of lights will be. So I had to start measuring these things and get an idea of approximately how big I think it is, what angle it's on, and then of course go to the front view, which is underneath here, and now ripped, I'm gonna have to tape that. It's just getting worse, I'm ruining everything. Underneath here, so I get a width, which is 64 inches, and then I get a height, I think it was 1.5 inches here and a little bit bigger in the middle. And the problem is that drawing is a bit rough. And that drawing is a projection of drawings from back when that were tiny. So I then have to look at other visual representations of the original car, as well as keeping in mind what it is that I need to subtly change for aerodynamics and handling and everything. But, you know, pay homage to Marcello's original artwork that I was inspired by, and then take this and build it into a supercar that's like my production car, and this being the prototype, and where it goes from there. So what I learned was, I did this as the front, and this inner support, this stuff here, that's what I started with. So I made this triangle to find this point right here. That little point right there was basically the first point I found. And to do that, sorry, I'm running all around. You're okay, careful there. To do that, I had to measure in space and decide how far is it off the center line, how far is it off of the wheelbase of the tire, and I could start finding that point. Then I had to adjust this so it was off the ground a certain way. So that's how I found my point, just like that. In fact, you can see on the ground the mark where it was, where that point was. Okay? So once I have my point, I welded this rod from here right onto the chassis to there, and this one up here to triangulate it. So it's rigid up and down. It could move a little bit side to side. Then I went over there, did the same thing. Once I had that, I could take this piece here that I made on the ground and gently rolled in the roller to give it the gentle curve and weld it on with a buddy helping me hold it. And then I just kept triangulating it to make it firm. And it was very important to do the front leading edge and then to do this rear opening because the rest of the car will flow from front to rear. And you can see it here. All of the lines flow from front to rear, rear to front. So here's the rear, and then you have everything going on. It's just a continuation of the function, is the form literally following the function of the car with a fair bit of style. So that's why I start with those two things that were the most important aspect. And back here, it was a little more complex because this is not just one plane that I can bend. It also goes like this. So the first points I found was this one right here. And then, of course, I mirrored it and did it on the other side. Then I found this point, did it there. Then I found this point, did it there. And from there, I could triangulate this, of course, and then strengthen it and triangulate it all. So these are quite rigid. I mean, I would have to really bump into it to screw it up. And then I could subtly bend the top edge here and this one to get it to have that very subtle curves I needed. So there's the rear. And it was super rewarding, a lot of fun to do to stay up. And then today, when I was recording, right before that, I realized that with this drawing and what I've got, I didn't have enough information to make this go the right direction. And I could have just keep building the car the way I wanted to, but the drawing is so far off that it's that last percent, that last 2% of like the edges and the subtle curves that I want to have come across. I want that same feel, even if it's not exactly the same. So what I had to do was, I got a load of pictures just for inspiration of the old car, and I just sent them to a printer and had them throw this together in a book. And what this does is, there's all kinds of different angles of the original car, original ones. So if, for instance, I'm working on it, and I'm not sure if just looking at drawings like this, if they're not quite right or accurate, then I can see the original and start seeing subtle curves and reflections and where it comes into play with tires, how much overhang is of a fender well, how sharp are some of the edge and how wide are some of the rolls, and just how that works. Because truthfully, there's a number of old drawings I found of the original, and nothing is the same. I look at the pictures of the original car, and then I see some of the technical drawings, like this one here, which is what I projected to make that, and then this one here. And I can tell you right now that this drawing here is not the same as this. If you just look at this, the size of these windows, look at the width of this and the width of this. They're virtually identical. Then if you look at this drawing, this one is much taller than this one. So these are all deviating, and they're not correct. Now, I don't want to make an exact replica. I just don't. It's already not a replica. It's bigger. It's V12 powered. It's like a proper supercar. But this is the car that inspired me as a young person, and the art and design of the time in the early 70s in Italy. So I want it to feel like that. I want that flavor to come through. So when I am taking points off of this and then thinking of what I've built mechanically and how I want it to perform, I have to think about all of its function, how everything's going to fit. Then I look at the photos to get that vibe. And truthfully, so like finding a point, this point here is very important, and I'll tell you why. Because you got your wheel well opening here, and that was difficult to get because it's bending on a bunch of different planes. Anyway, so you got the wheel well opening here, that's very important. But then this point, this center line is real key because it comes all the way back to here, right in the middle. So it almost gets like this arrow effect. And this line, what's interesting, if you look at it in terms of art and design, if you were to have it continue all the way straight past the tire, it basically comes right to the center of this point, which is key relating to design and the flow of the design being very arrow-like. So if you want to go back there a little bit and get down low, I can show that. That was tricky to do. So I had my opening in the front and I had my opening in the rear. And then it's time to think, how am I going to connect this? And I have to do it in a way that supports it. And I know the things I'm putting in are correct so that when I'm doing other things, they're building upon the right style. If I start with something that's all wrong or looks terrible, everything else is going to end up looking terrible and being all wrong. So the next thing I did was, from this point here, I was able to make the curvature of the fender opening. Now, right now I've got the car at 3.5 inches ride height, which is very low. I don't want it to ever be much lower than that. And it can go lower, but I don't want it to be much lower than that. So when I did the opening of the wheel well, we're talking like 1/4 of an inch plane to the top of the tire. The fender will come up slightly, so it'll give me the clearance I need to be before it's bottomed out. But if I raise the car up slightly, it won't have a massive fender gap. Something I got to think of. Also, if you look straight down, maybe you come over here in the front and you can see there, and just look down the edge of this. Here, go where the jack is. Remember when you look down at the curves? Okay, so if you guys look down straight down at this, these look straight from the side, but obviously this curvature here comes way out and then goes way in and then tucks underneath. And that's what kind of gives it the athletic svelte look, but also is abominable for aerodynamics. So I have to then balance, which I'm gonna get to, because this car, I'm literally gonna build it with a removable track package. I'm not even kidding, it's gonna be super cool. And we're gonna get to that in a minute. So I bent the curvature for the fender, but then when I started looking at it in real life, it didn't work well with the design. And I even had to deviate from the original. One, checking that when the tire turns and goes up and down, it won't hit anything, but it looks right. It pays homage to the design of the style of the time period in Italy, but works. And the other thing is, here it was easy. I just pick up this point, and there's a subtle curve in this line, and it comes up and follows it beautifully in a center point right above the tire and comes down. But if you look in the back, it comes down and then rolls underneath the car, and the bottom of the body will actually be welded to the edge of the chassis here on the Boxster. But the car gets wider as it goes back, which I think you could see from all these curves subtly. So you can't just pick those points in space. You have to find the ones you need and stay there. As I said, this center line being that sort of arrow look that if it continues in space visually comes to the point in the front, this point right here is immensely important. So to find that, I can't just measure from the ground up on this drawing here, because this car has a higher ride height than what mine is. So it's already not going to work from the drawing. So I could also look at it in relation to vertically, where is it from the center point of the wheel, but that's not even going to be quite right. So I have to understand the elements and principles of design and art that, boom, it goes right to the point. So what we did was, I had a buddy, I just took a straight rod, and I knew it had to come from here, and we held it, he held it up there, and I welded this on, okay? And then from there, we held it, just supported it gently, continued it, and I used a pair of vice grips to hold it up against these, and we just went back and looked at it until this line is straight all the way through. Once it was straight all the way through, I looked down at it to make sure it had the subtle curve it needed on the outside, and then I marked it with a marker so I knew where to cut it, and I also knew where to weld it on. And from there it was very simple, because I simply just welded it on. And I hope this is like, you guys are starting to feel it, because already with the wire form that's on here, I can see the car. I can feel it. I know how it's taking shape, and it's going to come along pretty quickly. And I'm going to show you guys how to do it with one of them up here. But this is working beautifully for the car, and this is what it is to make a wire buck. My style is going to be a little different, because a lot of this buck will be in the original, will be welded to the original body of the car. Some of the supports will be cut out later, but this is going to be part of it. So now, this is where some of you are going to lose your mind. This is where it's fun. So the track package. The original car is really neat for art and design. It's got blind spots, which I'm just going to have to deal with, because I like the kind of psychotic design of this for reality. But the aerodynamics are terrible. So how can I work with that cool design and elements of the time period and have that flavor, but make a car that's stable at high speed and even makes downforce? Come on over here to the front and let's look back toward it. Maybe stand right here as back as far as you can. If you all notice here, this, where the lights will be, acts as a splitter. You've got air going over the top, which makes it look like an airplane wing, but it also curves underneath and jams the air up there. The air flowing underneath the car is also where I'm going to pick up the cool air or ambient air for the radiator and blow it out the back. In the original design with the little 4-cylinder engine, they put the radiators in the back of the car, and they used the big triangular opening to basically attack the air and bring it in. That's also abominable for high-speed aerodynamics. So I'm having the air flow under the car, of which I'll pick that up to cool the engine with the radiator. And then the triangular opening, stay there, I'll show you a picture of it, if I can find it quick, of it opening in one of these pictures. It's pretty neat. I am going to invert the direction of these fins. See, they go up and out to try to bring the air in. And I want to find a picture of it open. I've got one. Yeah, here we go. So this picture, it's very cool looking because it's very sharp. And the air is to be directed in. Now this is up. This is how you open the engine bay in the original car. I'm going to invert these because I want the air to be vented outward. And since this whole area is on a downward slope, that's what you want because that would effectively create a low pressure. And the way these fins were on the original exacerbate it. So by venting the hot air up and out and from under the car, it'll help get rid of that. Now, this is going to basically act like a big pillow and try to lift the front. So what I'm going to do is, if you guys remember this transverse tube here, which is very strong, it's tied into the subframe. It also has a pedal support. I'm going to weld toward the outside of this, going straight down, 2 tubes. And in them, they will be threaded. Now, you'll be able to see it at the very bottom of the body, and it'll have a little pad. So there'll be 2 right there. And then out here, and the reason I had to make the wire form first is I need to see where it is, but there will be tubing out here, which will be more of your feet protection and your cockpit protection, a bit more of a crumple. So the bodywork will crumple, and then that will protect you from getting all smushed up in here. But having those tubes there also gives me the opportunity to drop down to other tubes in the front with threaded parts. So if I want, I can just let the car look like this with no aerodynamics. It'll be a beautiful car when it's finished. It'll be better for driving around the city because the nose comes up and I can make it up driveways and things like that. But with the 4 threaded things in there, I'm going to build a carbon fiber splitter at the bottom to split it, which will come out just ahead of the where the lights are here, and come back here. Probably have a little bit of a deflector for the tire area on the side, and there'll be a bit of an air dam there, of which if I want to, and I probably will do this, I'm going to have some scoops in here, probably a NACA duct on the bottom that can direct air to the front brakes. And then when it gets the air dam here, it'll have an opening which will create just enough high pressure to go to the brakes as well, but dam the rest of the air so it has to go up over the car or somewhat spill out to the side. So that will be removable with only 4 bolts, just like that, no big deal. So I'm really excited about that. But in regard to the rear, and you guys are going to lose your minds, I've got this old Le Mans legit racing wing. It's like you'd have on a prototype car back in the day. And it's made of aluminum. It's riveted together like airplane wings. And this, I know you guys are going to like make rice or jokes, but if this is mounted just slightly above the top edge of this, you'll get the airflow over the top of the car to accelerate underneath the bottom, which is the important part because you need a high speed over the curvier part of a wing to create downforce or inverted lift in this case. So right about here is going to be the most efficient place to put it. And also, if you go way over there and look, go way over there and look. No, don't look over there. Move your body over there and look at the car. Anyway, can you get an idea visual of how long the car is? So here is this wing. So in terms of the art and design, I need to look at how the side goes all the way down to the point and the angles that is, because the wing fence here, this shape, is what it was on the original. And this is made out of, looks like jabrock or something. Anyway, I'm going to take this off. I think it just bolts or rivets on, so I can drill that out. I'm going to make new wing fences that obviously will add efficiency to the airfoil by keeping the high pressure up here from spilling over to the low pressure and make it more efficient. But I will also be able to make the shape of the wing fence be a little bit more fitting to the design of this. And so the wing will become a massive part of the design of the vehicle. The other fun thing about it is you see that the wing attaches here in the middle and it's adjustable. I did think about having a cockpit adjustable wing. I may not do that. That's a little overkill and silly, but it's fun. But the beauty of this wing is, if I want to remove it and just let the car be short like this to drive around, this whole area in the back is a screen, kind of like a Ferrari 360 Challenge grille is, to let hot air out. But I can make a different screen that I remove, and there'll be arms that attach to this wing that come in and bolt inside here. So I do not have to drill any holes or cut any slits in the actual body of the car. I just have to make a different screen. So I think that's really neat because this will give the car a beautiful element and principle of design, a totally different look, obviously downforce, a really cool track package. But if I want to drive the car around town and I'm worried about overhangs and curbs and stuff, I take the wing off and I take off the air dam with a super low splitter, and I can actually get around and navigate more readily easy. So I think that's really neat because I can't think of a lot of cars that have quickly removable track packages and full aero that you can take it all apart with 8 bolts. I mean, 15 minutes, one person, you can remove the whole thing and just have the car kind of the naked rally city look. And I think that's really cool. Also from that time period, if you want to come back here and look from the back, because of the nature of the design of the body and such, it goes over the tires. And I know nowadays everybody likes to look at cars, and come over here and I'll show you. If you look at this Corvette here, the racing Corvette, stand there, right there, move over. It looks cooler when the tires come right to the edge of the fender, and you can see here on the race car as well. Even the Morgan, strangely enough, the tires on the Morgan come out largely. But there's a lot of cars where the design reflects for them to be sunk inside the fenders a little bit. That kind of goes too far. There's some like 1950s Ferraris that look really, really dorky because the wheels are so in there. But that's also part of it. And in the rear of this, it'll have a beautiful sweeping thing that's part of the design that covers up a lot of the tire. The trick of it is you still have to be able to remove the wheel by unbolting it, so it has to come out before you can drop it and weasel it out. So I'm going to jack this thing up and look and see how much droop I have on the rear to make sure that I'm not going to have a problem actually removing the wheel with the nature of the design of the bodywork I'm going to create. So it's pretty darn exciting. I really want to show you guys how to do this right now, but honestly, I hope you give me the benefit of the doubt because it's Wednesday and I'm really tired and it's like 6 o'clock and I still have to record a couple more videos and then get them out and edited because at noon I have to be on the road and going somewhere for business that's super important. So guys, I know you're getting bummed and you really want to see massive time lapses and working and everything like that, but just give me the benefit of the doubt this one time so I can kind of explain it to you. And I will come back and we're going to finish the rest of this wire form. It's going to be really, really fun. So I appreciate that. More is coming, but I'll give you an example. I don't even have time right now to figure out how to do a time lapse on my GoPro. Don't comment below and tell me how. I'll figure it out. I tried it once before and all I got were thousands of photos. So I've got to do it, but you got to let me do the things I'm doing right now because I promise you this YouTube channel is going to be absolutely amazing next year because of it. So thank you for being patient with me on that. I just wanted to explain it to you. But some of the other things, if you want to come here and kind of just kneel down and look, that I think is a lot of fun, is if this is the bottom of the opening, and keep in mind it had that colored strip right here of lights or tail lights that went the whole way around. You can tell, and this is a 3D printed model that Ryan, one of my students actually, I gave him a 3D file and he put this on a printer and printed it out for me to kind of hold. And that's kind of nice. I can put my hands on it, kind of feel it, look at the bottom and get a feeling for it where I can't as easily on photos. But of course there's things that aren't going to be exactly correct. But you can see the opening there and then the lower bodywork comes downward. And what's neat is the Porsche Boxer, this undercarriage, and this would have been the trunk where it's cut, fits perfectly. And when this comes down just a little bit to about here, the back of the transaxle in this car will hit in almost identical place as the original, which is so cool. So this will come down here, which actually will hide all of this, and it'll give me the opportunity to cap this off and weld on the structural tubes, which will come to approximately here, and they'll have the receptacle so I can bolt in and off that big wing. And behind the screening where you can see it. So that's really cool, and it's kind of a really lucky thing that happened for me with using the Porsche Boxer as a platform. You can also see that it's super low, and I've got to do the exhaust. The one downside, of course, to getting to the point of the wire body right now is I'm just making everything else harder to work on. So in a perfect world, I would have finished all the exhaust and made everything run and perfect, but I don't quite have the time for that because I'm doing this in stages because next month, this body is going to be finished and painted. At which point I will then be working on the interior, and when the interior is at that point, then I'll be plumbing everything and doing the wiring to make it drive. So basically, a finished car this year, but it's not going to be the ultimate evolution of it. Obviously, I've got to do performance type things. Things may happen to tires and wheels, but there's so much beautiful room for quad turbos. And I've never turboed a car, so why not start with 4? I don't want to build an absurd amount of horsepower, just make a really, really cool ride that's fast and a bit scary, but nicely civilized. And the first quad turbos were from the Bugatti EB110, which I thought was really cool back in the 90s. But in closing, I did want to tell you guys something. So recently on my Instagram story, a friend of mine, Dr. M3 in Pittsburgh, took a picture years ago when I had that silver Countach. And that was before the prices exploded and nobody wanted a Countach because it's a fashionable, cantankerous old piece of crap, which is still true. But that fashionable, cantankerous piece of old crap, wealthy people decided they all needed a couple years ago, and the prices skyrocketed to the moon and back, and I will probably never be able to afford a Countach again, which really annoys me a lot, because I like that car, even though it was a piece of crap. But the beauty is, when you can build something, you can build your dreams. And honestly, this King Zero I'm doing right now is going to be more stylish than the Countach. It's better engineered. It's going to be a better long-lasting car. It will perform better and be more comfortable and enjoyable to drive. It has the same basic vibe and homage of the design that came from it, from the same masters of design and feeling. So in a way, I get to build exactly what I wanted my Countach to be in my dreams and make it even better. So, and I get to do it for a song. So while I may never be able to afford a Countach again, I could if I went into business and I wasn't teaching kids in Genius Garage. But while I may never be able to do that again, it doesn't matter because I got to use talent and think about it and build a dream. And I think you guys can build your dreams too. So when this is done, I think I'm actually going to paint it silver. And I was actually kind of thinking of doing a blue interior because that's the way my Countach was. And not because I want my Countach back and I want that better, I don't, but it's kind of funny because it's sort of like rubbing it in my Countach's face. Like the Countach was a bad ex-girlfriend. You know what I'm talking about? That's kind of mean, I shouldn't have said that, but I did. I'm not going to edit it. Anyway, you guys, that's what's going on. I'm just really excited about it, and I hope this inspires you to build something. And for kids out there, or you guys that can't afford cars, I get it, but all the techniques I'm doing here, the drawings, the design, bring it to 3D, and making molds, you can do this with old school 124 scale slot car building, a radio control car. So I hope this inspires you to do something with that. And I look forward to see you guys next time. I'm out.